All right. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. As usual, this video is for educational, information, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand that everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. Everyone is responsible for their own affairs. With that being said, all rights are reserved. Now, to get into the topic of this video, the topic is going to be why some redemption education processes don't work. This is going to be kind of like a quick freestyle. I'm on a very limited time, guys. So as you guys already know, I just wanted to hit you guys with a quick video. I might have to do a part 2 or continuation, because obviously I won't go into the details, but I do have some notes with me, by the way. One thing I want to point out is that processes have changed throughout the years. Like, people have asked me in the past, Dorsey, does A for V still work? That's acceptance for value. Some things that dealing with the IRS, the Treasury, they've changed procedures around. Just to let you guys know, I do know years ago there was an investigative journalist from a lot of research and reading that I did. His name was Barton Buttes. You can Google or look up his name to see if there's still any information online. I'm actually, I can't tell you for sure that you'll be able to still find information online, because a lot of things were scrubbed, were removed, and that site Scribs or whatever took a lot of that information, and they actually make you like pay a fee. I'm getting that shadow again, guys, so let me see if I can get to a better spot. Kind of that glare, trying to get rid of that glare that I have that's coming in. Okay, gotta still bear with me as I adjust the camera and things. So, like I said, to reiterate, there was a journalist, his name was Barton Buttes, some years ago, actually, and he actually met, a lot of you all may not know this or be aware, this is apparently credible information. I actually heard his voice. I got a hold of a disc that a guy some years ago gave me that had information on it, had a lot of information for research education, dealing with this redemption education, that had different folders, and I actually heard his voice, and so he was basically checked out as a real person. I used to actually read about a lot of this information online when I first started researching this information to find out the validity, how accurate it was to make a proper assessment. But I want to let you guys know, in terms of discharges, I do know at one time that the Treasury honored them in DC. I can't say that they still do, as far as negotiable instruments, like say just certain types of paperwork, for example, that would be a bond or promissory note. It would be structured a certain way, but I heard years later the formats and things changed, and then the A for V stamps were like something different, for example. So I just wanted to let you guys know, throughout the years, the cabal, the ruling class, the people high up, I believe, in my opinion, have stopped or blocked access to certain procedures, certain methods. That's why there's new processes. So newbies getting in this type of information for the first time, by the way, just keep that in mind. So to get right into the information, is many of these courthouses and government institutions, by the way, are committing fraud. For example, when they abuse their authority. One thing I learned about, people started doing years ago, we learned that the IRS actually, which is synonymous with the Treasury, there's a connection between the two, by the way, and this is a fact, to research, because there was those out there that tried to say it was no connection at one time between these entities, but they're like brother and sister there. And I'm gonna get to the chat to acknowledge you guys, because I'm on limited time, by the way, potentially, so I'm going to try to run through real quick. But the reason you will file your complaints with the IRS for agencies that have wronged you, that's like corporations that won't accept your negotiable instruments, that you send them like your documents and things that you submit, for example, There's whistleblower forms. If you go to irs.gov, I know 3949A was one of them. There's actually a separate form that's a whistleblower form. There's actually a civil rights complaint form, by the way. I was familiar with 3949A and then also this whistleblower form years ago. I can't remember which form specifically, but you know, you can look it up, by the way. But what's happening is these courthouses and many of these corporations, even city governments, are banking. They're cooking the books because they're what's happening is the IRS is not getting a cut. So what happens if they've wronged you or done you wrong, you will file these documents with the Internal Revenue Service to have oversight to make sure that these corporations, you're basically like tattletelling on them that are abusing their authority, their power. You're telling them on the IRS, because you notice when you go to a lot of these government institutions, whether it be the county or Secretary of State, that's like Department of Motor Vehicles, they play with the names and they take cash from you. Let's say, like, for example, when you go and pay, you know, let's say Federal Reserve notes, actually it's the proper term, and pull out a few ducats. So you go to pay them with cash, for example, for the service that you're getting, and they don't give you a receipt, you know, or they tell you that your receipt is in the form of the registered sticker that you get for your car when you re-register. You know, it may have the amount, but you're really supposed to get a separate receipt for that transaction. And what that does is it enables the corporations that are abusing their power to cook the books. That's why if you've seen some of these corruption, misconduct investigations where the FBI has come in, investigated local municipalities, different government officials and people's, because they're very abusive. And this is, I knew this information years ago from the redemption movement. So no, there is truth to the information, despite what gatekeepers out there, minions and underlings, are trying to tell you and say that this is all a scam, that this is myth, this is made up. But this is a reason why some of these processes don't work. Many of these gatekeepers, lawyers, judges, they're not following their fiduciary responsibility. And in many cases, public officials, public servants, even at a lower level, don't have delegation of authority to be making a legal determination of your affair. Let me say that again. They don't have proper delegation of authority when you know what you're doing to make a assessment, a judgment of your affair. That's actually lawyering. That's when they're actually giving legal advice. And there's ways to sue them, you know, when they're operating in the public. That's an example. So when these entities collect cash from you and they don't give you a receipt, this allows government courthouses, Secretary of States, counties, etc., to cook the books and accounting. So when they get audited, there's no proper paper trail. So in some cases, or it's not matching up with the electronic records, because electronic records can be altered. Like when you give them cash, for example, once again, I'm paying cash for how much ever it is, and then in return, they're not giving you the receipt for your transaction that you're making, then you got to really think about that, you know, for a number of years. That's why I even had a relative told me, make sure you always get a receipt. And they are actually more responsible, since they're operating in the public on the statutory side, to provide transparency, accountability, so that there's proper checks and balances in place. So there's ways, in case some of you are new to this redemption movement, I don't call this stuff sovereign citizen. That's an umbrella term that's used to discredit this type of information, or people looking into the validity, the valid side that is valid, not other stuff out there that certain minions and underlinks and gatekeepers are trying to convince you of, because they want to steer you away from it, and they don't want you to believe none of this is real. But there's processes that have worked. But this video is to kind of explain why some redemption education processes don't work. But Barton Butts, years ago, I was just using this journalist. He was an investigative journalist. I brought him up because he met with the former Secretary of Treasury, Paul H. O'Neill, I believe at the time was his name. And the former Secretary of Treasury admitted at the time that they honored negotiable instruments. At the time, they settled them. So now I say nowadays, this kind of like old information, I haven't used some of those methods in a long time myself. I've been very busy, you know, working, of course, the slavery plantation, as I call it, and I'm trying to become free. And that's why I had to go through another avenue, removing myself from certain contracts. Because see, everything we do involves contracts, which is an agreement between more than one party. When you can look up the definition of contract, and there's different types of contracts. Everything that we get involved with involves contracts. So understand that despite what this gatekeeper, these minions out there, these trolls are trying to discredit this information, say this is real, this redemption stuff is fake, this doesn't work. No, it does work. I've seen successes myself, and just because they may not have had a positive experience or have not been a witness, that does not, provide evidence that there's things that don't work at all. But there's another way to approach this when, many of these corporations and institutions are abusing their authority. So they're required to provide transparency, accountability, because what this does, it helps keep proper checks and balances to keep them from abusing the public, the general public. And the court system, what's happening is they're committing fraud in many cases where, let me get to the second section. Okay, here is, like, keep in mind, if you hire an attorney or public defender, your defense counsel, they have to have the ability to use your signature. Once you sign a document, when you hire an attorney or public defender, you're giving them power of attorney over you. There's documents you can look up, power of attorney, and you're saying you're incompetent, to handle your own commercial affairs. By the way, if you know what you're doing, there's processes, procedures to basically, do things yourself. By the way, they're acting as a third party intermediary, like a go-between. And I know some of this stuff can be tough. I won't go over that in this video, but I'm going to focus on, exposing, showing you guys how they commit fraud. So when you hire an attorney, defender, public counsel, what they do is they pretend to be your friend, and they'll use your signature behind your back because they can monetize this instrument. For example, this paperwork that you sign, they can securitize that behind the scenes, because every claim that the court makes against you is can be $2 to $10 million per charge on the private side. By the way, if hopefully I'm explaining that right, they're fractionalizing. That's why when people pay bonds and stuff, they say if you put down like 10% or a certain amount, that's dealing with fractionalization. You would understand if you study fractional reserve banking. Some of you all know what that means. Like the bank, if you have $1,000 on deposit, they can loan up to 90% of your funds. Some people say the correct amount is 90%. So say if you have $10,000 on deposit, that institution has the ability through your signature and behind the scenes, you've declared yourself incompetent or U.S. citizen, by the way, which is at a lower level. I won't below a national status, because there's individuals out there that's trying to tell you there's no distinction. I won't get heavy into that because that gets into some real high level stuff, and that's like for an elite class, elite level, and some stuff is just too sensitive to go into the details. But I was watching this particular gatekeeper, their channel. I actually discovered another guy, kudos to his channel. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name, if it was Emos or something like that. Forgive me if I'm incorrect, but there's other people that I'm aware of that are very proficient, even more advanced than myself. And I don't have a problem giving other YouTube channels mad kudos, props, mad praise to the work that he's doing over there, which is phenomenal, by the way, as well as others, many others out there. So there's some information that I've known about, and I'm just coming across it again, that I thought it was important to share with you guys. So when a lot of people are fighting and stuff, and the court's trying to get justice, did you know justice means just us? But that's dealing with the courts, the lawyers and judges, just us. Not for you, but the courts, because remember their first duty of business. When I did that screen capture video a while ago, not too long ago, I went over that in a particular document, that the lawyers, their duty is to the courts. I have documentation to support this, to the Bar Association, British Accredited Regency. They're issued that P number like people get issued marriage licenses and things through the county. That P number, that license that lawyers get, you know, they're supposed to renew every year, just like their oath of offices and judges, for example. That's like how you renew your driver's license or every so many years when they're practicing and they take that title of nobility when they're not operating in the private capacity, you know, and they say I'm honorable so-and-so, and it goes in front of their legal government name. You know, that's a title of nobility, by the way, and that gets into some other history. By the way, I won't go into all that. I actually don't have even all of my notes to even clarify, but some of you are already aware, but I'm just giving you all enough input. So I went over, keep in mind, if you hire an attorney or public defender, they have the ability to use your signature against you behind your back, even in cases where you think they support you, or in many cases they pretend to be for you. What they're doing is they use your signature without permission, because once you have agreed to contract with them, what the public defender or counsel does when they ask you for your social security number, which is a felony if you know what you're doing according to the Privacy Act, you don't have to give that out. You can use something else instead. I won't go into. They're using that information to cash in, and the courts, once again, they get $2 to $10 million per charge, or whatever, something like that. Because the courts, the county uses what's called Kaffir Funds. It stands for Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. Kaffir is an acronym for comprehensive, you know, county and court. They're synonymous with one another. They have a court within the county. You know, notice how they're connected. When you go to city hall or city government in this business district, generally they'll be in downtown areas or midtown business districts. And there's general procedures oftentimes consistent with one another, by the way. So to let you guys know, when the public defender, they ask you for your or counsel, they ask you for your social, and you already have given your signature, that's your acquiescence, they can monetize the instrument and even forge and sign your documents, because they can do things electronically behind your back for things that you may not even be aware of or haven't even agreed to. That's why, remember, it came out in the news not too long ago how Wells Fargo Bank was using people's social security number without permission. And then you even heard about Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian having a data breach and things. How is these, you know, corporations, you know, violating and causing very egregious crimes, worse than so-called sovereign citizens? But this particular gatekeeper, she won't touch on that. How these corporations and people in the public have been harmed 10 times over by entities that they're supposed to trust. You know, that's why there's checks and balances in place to make sure these corporations are supposed to be accountable. All corporations are supposed to follow public law. You know, they're supposed to be up under, you know, rules, regulations, and things, and they're more responsible because they're operating on the statutory side. Whereas us, if you know to distinguish between your private capacity versus how you're doing business through your legal person in the court system, the in lingus, by the way, or they also oftentimes refer to as the legal person. You guys might call it the straw man or whatever, but they refer to it as in lingus in the court, or legal, or they'll say legal person. Also, res is codified in Title 9 of the United States Codes that deals with the ship. That's the vessel, because they're operating under Admiralty. They've combined Admiralty maritime jurisdiction. Admiralty is military, maritime is law of the seas. They have you listed as lost at sea. You're operating as a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen according to the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1914. Every citizen is an enemy of the state. It's been declared. Let me say that again. Actually, let me correct myself. I made a mistake. I mean 1917, the Trading with the Enemy Act. There was a law. I did get that message. Kudos to my subscribers, the brothers who shared that with me on my Facebook account. I did check out that information, and I went to the law and researched that. Kudos to you guys, by the way. I don't remember your names offhand, by the way, but thank you for sharing that. I was aware of that information, but I wasn't aware of the actual statute where it was located, and I did go over it and read it, because many of these things are in the codes. And you can go to the Library of Congress places and get actual copies, certified copies of. Because there's a minion gatekeeper will have you believe that House Joint Resolution 192 is not real, when you can go to the Library of Congress and get certified copies, even on the Moroccan Treaty of Peace and Friendship at the National Archives in Washington, D.C. Reason I know this, I actually been there. I have a certified copy. It's in Arabic, language, so you don't have to know how to speak Arabic to translate it. It's already been translated, but you guys get the drift. There's gatekeepers and people out here who are trying to discredit this information, and they don't have no evidence. They're telling you that facts matter, but they don't have validity. Like what I'm going over now, I'm proving to you verbally. If you research the information, you'll see that I'm telling the truth. I'm showing my face. I'm not hiding behind a fake account like they are. You're getting a real person. You know, you're not getting a gatekeeper, a agent, a minion, a shield, by the way, who wants you to believe that their facts matter when they're not even showing a real face or a real name, and they're using a pseudonym. They're not even using a government legal name at all. You know, that shows you how corrupt that they're a wannabe, basically. But you have somebody that's giving you high power stuff to research. And I've even done screen capture videos. If you go back and look at some of my previous videos, you have to do the research on my channel. It's important. But I've done screen capture videos to show the evidence for things. And that's very important, by the way. So once again, even in cases where you think that the public defender, lawyers have your back, they use your signature without your permission once you have agreed to contract with them. And also the court makes $2 to $10 million per charge. So when the public defender or counsel is asking you for your social security number, which is tied in with your TDA, your secret account, by the way, a private account, you know, I won't get into the word game between secret and private. They practically mean the same thing. It's hidden, but they ask you for that social and you give it to them. They're monetizing, taking the instruments, not just signing your signature on documents and things you didn't agree to, because you're saying when you hire them, you're incompetent. By the way. That stand by, you can meet me at MSDS in a few.
That's good copy.
So I just kind of wanted to finish going over that with you guys there. Thank you for joining me. I'm gonna get ready to get into the chat because my as I said, I was limited for time, just as I predicted. So you know, my supervisor's on site. I'm still at the plantation, but I'm showing you and trying to free ourselves from this matrix. It is not impossible. This information is very real, but I just wanted to go over. I took some notes from watching another video, and kudos to that one brother Emos. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name of his channel correctly, but mad kudos to him and the sister Rochelle and what they're doing over there and what she shared, by the way. And I've come across this information being a student of Jonah Bay, Yusufel, and some others, by the way, some heavy hitters in the movement, and meeting people in person. I know this information is real, but I just want to show you they're using your social to gain access and cash in on your account through your signature. That's your acquiescence when you agree, by the way. So I'm gonna go in the chat before I shut things down real quick and acknowledge you guys, by the way. Victor Collins, Strength Signal. Appreciate it, Victor. Thank you for joining. Someone in Arabic says thumbs up. Appreciate you. Not sure how to translate the Arabic there, a Mediterranean language, but thank you for joining. Kudos to you. Matter of fact, I do know how to speak a little bit of Arabic, and greeting you with the thumbs up, I can say mahalba, which means welcome, by the way, in Arabic, on keflik, you know, alhamdulillah, by the way, to you and my Arabic brother, you know, peace to you. Chris Gray says peace to you. Thank you for joining. Chris Smith says peace, Dorsey. Peace to the God. Peace, brother. Chris Multi Haystack says, hey, Dorsey. Thank you for joining. Haystack Jack Tripper says, have you seen David Young in YouTube? Yes, I've actually have. Excellent work. I've come across his information. There's so many different processes to keep up with. But yeah, he was a pioneer in the movement. One of the Patriot brothers. He provides promissory notes, and you can become a private banker with him. I'm going to try his note. I've heard nothing but great things. Yes, I've heard his processes have worked. One of the things I know is you would go to like a bank that has like similar to a notary. It's like an individual that can do what's called a medallion signature stamp, because what's happening is when they stamp your document, you're monetizing it. It's giving it credibility to so it can be securitized, you know, and traded and given value. When you have the medallion signature stamp, it adds value or gives value to the document by the way. So I'm going over a little securities banking, but this is not legal advice. This is not banking advice. I did give a disclaimer, but I'm kind of dropping some Jews for you guys to show you I am well studied. I'm familiar with David Young, by the way. So thank you for that information, Jack. Mary Saunders says, hello, Mr. Dorsey. Thank you for joining, Mary. Appreciate you. Jack Tripper says, too much guessing with all the other methods. I have yet to see anyone with proof of any of them work. Yes, I understand. It could be frustrating. However, I've seen a few things work, and I don't really have the time in this video. But if you remove certain contracts, that's a start. Really does a lot, by the way. Chris Gray says, newbie to this information. Jack Tripper says, rabbit hole deep. Chris Gray says, just recently bought the redemption manual because of your video review. Thanks. Kudos to you. You know, appreciate that. That redemption manual, it's a good start to understand how we got to where we're at. And I'm not saying I don't know if some of those processes still work. I can't guarantee, because I've done methods in the past, but there's a whole plethora of information. It's like unconventional education that's on a level of collegiate university. That's very in-depth, like people studying for their master's or PhD. Multi-A Stack says, speak on it, brother. Jack Tripper says, Google Miami Federal Courthouse. It is the shape of a boat right in our face. Hashtag Admiralty Law. Wow, I wouldn't be surprised. How do you spell the brother's name? Emos? Yeah, I think something like that. Type in Emos, type in on YouTube, child support case, Rochelle. Well, just type in Rochelle child support case. It's going to have like red fire logos. And then you'll see the monetization, you know, asterisks or links at the bottom, lines going through, be like about 30 minutes, 30 something minutes long, I think, to know if you've come across the right video. And that video is high powered. Check that out, by the way, Chris. Jack Tripper says he charged $6,000 to discharge a loan up to $300K. Can't beat that. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm going really fast here as I'm gonna have to get ready to shut it down. Sean Diamond says, have the manuals 1 and 2, but I'm still trying to apply the some processes. Understand, it takes time. Don't, you know, feel bad. You know, I spoke to, you know, other subscribers, many people. I'm in a similar boat. There's still things at the level I'm at that I'm, you know, working on following, but there's things that I've already done. I don't have time to really go over a lot of paperwork, processes, procedures I've already started. Some things I've protected myself, because remember, they can't force you to enter into certain contracts. This is just in general. No matter how mad this minion gets, this gatekeeper that spews all these lies out there, look up the definition of contracts. You know, they can't force you. That's why when debt collectors send the letter and it says this is an attempt to collect the debt, any information obtained will be used for this purpose unless you dispute the validity of this debt. You have 30 days notice, they tell you. So they're giving you the opt-out. They can't force you. So everything we get involved with is kind. But I appreciate you guys for joining. Action-packed, short, high-powered video. I wish I could be before you guys long. However, I have obligations to get to. And Sean Diamond says, I got you. Thank you for joining. I'm your host, John Dorsey. You can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on minds.com at Dorsey's Resource, obviously on YouTube, of course. And I also have a Twitter handle, by the way. So I appreciate you guys for joining. Jack Tripper says, thanks. Thank you guys for joining. Until next time, signing out. You guys take care. Have a good one.